Rudi Womack, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah, of course. So we're here to talk about a couple things: your YouTube channel, the Film Festival Guide, and then the Wyoming International Film Festival. I was going to pick your brain about the film festival. Most of the time, we're starting our Spark of
Yeah.
Madness Film Festival in Idaho. So, how did the Wyoming International Film Festival start?
So it was originally founded by a gentleman named Alan Oashie, who's a documentarian based out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. He ran it for quite a number of years, really focused on local films or regional films from the area. After the first couple of years, he expanded internationally, started accepting films out of like Mexico, Canada, like stuff still relatively close to the United States. It was around 2020 during COVID that Alan retired. COVID happened. Some festivals were moving online. There's all this like tech problems with it. And I mean, the guy's retired. He wanted to enjoy retirement. So he's like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And through a series of events, we'll just say the torch got passed to me. And I went in a little bit kicking and screaming, but but I quickly found that I really love it and I have a deep passion for it.
Yeah, fantastic. So you came in around 2020. What were some of the um, biggest problems that you experienced when you were first starting out?
I mean, obviously, everything post COVID has been very difficult. Theaters in general have struggled with attendance. Movies in general have been struggling finding their audience. Obviously, you have the rise of social media and just people scrolling. So now you're competing against all of that. Specific to Cheyenne, there were two movie theaters. One of them closed down. So we essentially only had one option. The company that owns that movie theater pretty much has a monopoly across the state and wants no competition. So they would not allow us in the theater. So venue became a big struggle. But luckily for us, we were able to partner with the local community college, which has a beautiful auditorium. And that's where we host the festival.
Fantastic. You guys have multiple venues there at
Yes.
it's the Cheyenne Community. What's the name of the school?
Laramie County Community College, and we have three screening rooms. They're all on the campus, so it's all in the same location, but we have three different screening rooms. One of them is an improvised screening room. One of them is a black box theater, and one of them is a giant performance arts theater. It seats 400.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So, what were the most important relationships or partnerships you needed to form early on when you came on?
Excellent question. So when you're building a film festival, partnerships are everything because you just cannot do it your own. Just like a film, you need a good crew, you need a good cast. It's a collaborative effort. Film festivals are very much the same way. So I kind of broke it down into the local partnerships I needed and the more broader film industry partnerships that we needed. So on the local level, obviously, I wanted to get the tourism board involved with the film festival, Visit Cheyenne, and they are. We started going out for local sponsors, local donors, and we started finding great people to partner with, either vendors for like food or whatever services that we need. And then, of course, financial partners as well in the local community. Then speaking more broadly to the larger film industry as a whole, uh, immediately the first thing I saw when I took over our team at the time, it is no longer this way, but at the time was 100% dudes. It was just a bunch of guys. And so immediately I was like, that's going to be a problem. So I contacted the Alliance of Women Directors, AWD, and I was like, please help, please help. Like, this is going to be a problem if it's just a bunch of guy movies, right? And they were very generous. They were very understanding of our circumstances. They partnered with us and they have been a stable partner with us ever since. And I'm so grateful to AWD. They've been such a help on that front. We also have a very strong nonfiction branch to the film festival. So we went and partnered with IDA, which is the International Documentary Association. And they really helped us out with our nonfiction arm of the festival. So all of those partnerships, from financing to getting films in that our audience would be interested in, all of them were vital in contributing to the success of the festival.
Yeah. So when you came on, was there a good volunteer base, or did you have to build one?
Uh, Column A and column B, a little bit of both, because again, a lot of that evaporated during COVID, that, 2020, 2021, where things were still shut down. People didn't want to go out. A lot of people packed up and moved. Cheyenne is also a military town. Like there's a very big Air Force base there. So a lot of our volunteers and a lot of our audience is kind of transient because, they'll have the military will send them to Cheyenne and they'll be there for a couple of years and then they get sent somewhere else. So in a lot of ways, we did have a stable uh, group of people helping out with the festival. In a lot of ways, we had to build it also from the ground up. So it was kind of this merger of the two. And as the festival has evolved since then, we have an entirely different board of directors now. We have huge number of staff compared to what we started with just a couple of years ago when I took over. Like when I took over, it was just three of us really. Now there's like 25 programmers on the programming team this year, which is very helpful for us. So it's growing.
Yeah, fantastic. So you guys, with that many programmers, are you still trying to make sure that you watch every single film yourself, or do you kind of delegate?
It would be impossible for me to watch every single film by itself. So the way that our programming structure works is we have three tiers to the programming process. So the first tier is when our programming team at large reviews the films. And that way we have a minimum of two programmers on every single film. Most of them in practice actually get three, but we have a minimum of two. So there's two people watching every single film. Depending on their recommendations, depending on the score, depending on certain things that we're looking for in that year, they will make recommendations and those films will go up to the senior programmers. And then that's where I come in. That's where a number of other senior programmers come in. There's actually three of us as part of the senior programmers this year. And then we review the films from there. And again, we filter it out based on kind of what we're looking for, or trends that we see in the larger industry, or something that's unique or something that we know our audience responds to. It's more focused on tailoring the overall shape of the festival that year. And then it goes on to a third level where we actually go through and select the films individually. And that's when we start programming films together based on tone or tempo or genre or the style or the subject matter, or again, based on audience data from years past, what we see audience members like, what they don't like. Also new and emerging trends. We want to reward like new and unique voices. We want to discover filmmakers that bring something new to cinema at large. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. So real quick, if you have the numbers off the top of your head, how many shorts do you usually get, or how many did you get last year, and then for submissions, and then how many features?
If you give me just a second, I can give you the exact numbers because we publish all of our data. One of the things that we do that, I don't want to dunk on other festivals, but it's very important that we publish all of our data. And it's right there on our website. So if you go to WYOIFF.com, right there on the homepage, you will see all of our submission data from 2025. So your question was how many short films that we received.
Yeah, and how many features if you got it on there.
So narrative shorts submitted last year was 385. For narrative features was 91. So those are the narratives. We also have documentary features and documentary shorts. So documentary shorts, we had 59, and documentary features, we had 58. And then we break it down even further based on whether or not it's a Wyoming film or not a Wyoming film. But all of that data is available on our website. You can see how many were submitted, how many we selected, and we break it down by category, by region, by runtime. That's a very important one for filmmakers, is the runtime of film. So all of that information is publicly available.
Very cool. So I want to ask real quick, why is it important to publish that data? Because I love that you guys publish that data. I think it's a great resource. But yeah, why do you think it's important to publish that data for other festivals?
For a couple of reasons. First of all, I am a filmmaker too. So I also make films. I also go out to film festivals. And I also see a lot of frustration that filmmakers have with how opaque the film festival world is. The ecosystem of film festivals is a little bit imbalanced with the power. Right now, film festivals don't really share a lot of this kind of information with filmmakers. And so it makes it difficult for filmmakers to discover festivals that are right for them and see what their, chances are of getting into a festival is. It's actually why I'm a big proponent of Hike over Film Freeway. So that's HIIKE. It's a submission platform similar to Film Freeway. But what Hike does is Hike has gathered all of the submission data from all of these festivals over the past couple of years, and it allows filmmakers to essentially take a test that compares your film and the information you provide against other festivals. And it actually matches you with festivals that you have a higher percentage of getting into, and it calculates it out. So, let's say you have a short coming of age comedy film. All right. So you enter all that information in. And what Hike does is it compares against all the data of all these film festivals, and it will tell you, well, the Wyoming International Film Festival has screened those sorts of films in the past. So you have a 65% compatibility with YOIFF. But maybe there's another festival where you have an 80% compatibility score. So you might want to submit to that other festival, even though we have screened that sort of film before, just because you're more compatible with it. So I think it's an incredible resource for filmmakers to search festivals, and it takes a lot of that guesswork out of it. So for me, it's important that filmmakers have that information at their fingertips, because I think film festivals need to do a better job of serving the filmmakers and not concerned so much with quantity of submissions or even the money that they get from the submissions.
Yeah, that's great. So real quick, I think there's three options for a new film festival. There's the for-profit, the not-for-profit, and kind of a unofficial third category, the not-for-profit, as opposed to a nonprofit. At least in my interpretation, the not-for-profit, it's like you're not really trying to make a profit from it. Everything goes back into the festival, but you don't have to deal with having like a board, like a committee, and you don't have to file for a nonprofit and stuff. So what's the Wyoming Film Festival, and why'd they go that route?
So we are a 501c3, but previously we were a quote unquote for profit, but absolutely ran in the red every single year because we acted as a not for profit where profits were not the whole thing. So there are advantages and disadvantages. So if you are considering building a film festival from scratch, right out of the gate, it's probably a little bit easier to act as a not for profit where you're not trying to generate a profit for yourself, because frankly, if you're just starting out, you probably won't anyway. The costs of running a festival are just insane. But that said, I would recommend running it that way for a couple of years, get yourself on your feet, and then switch over to being a 501c3, which is a nonprofit. Now, the difficulties there are quite a few. One, it's very expensive to transition. With all the legal forms and the lawyers and everything else that you have to do with compliance, it costs several $1,000s to make that transition into a nonprofit. The other thing is compliance. Because you aren't paying taxes, the IRS is very strict about compliance, which is why you need a board of directors, why you need to continuously file reports. There's just a lot of extra paperwork that comes with it. But on that other end, you're not paying the taxes on things. So, it's kind of a give and a take there. And then, of course, as a nonprofit, you have more accessibility to grant money. Now, not all grants are strictly for nonprofits, but most grants are for nonprofits. So that does give you a little bit more access. I don't know how things are going in Idaho, but right now in Wyoming, there's almost no grant money anyway. So it's kind of, it's kind of
it's the same.
Yeah, I figured as much. I figured Idaho's kind of like that with Wyoming, but other states, there is that grant money. It does exist. So for some people, it makes the most sense to go nonprofit right out of the gate.
Yeah. With me, I was worried about losing creative control if
Mhm.
I get like a board of directors, if I go the nonprofit route. Do you think that's something to consider, or how would you avoid that if you go the nonprofit route?
I mean, I don't have that problem with my board of directors. My board trusts me very much, and I trust them very much. Anytime that there's disagreement on how to do things, it usually comes from the administrative part and not the creative part. And it's usually because they have a lot more experience than I do. So honestly, I end up deferring to them more often because my board members have all sat on other boards themselves, and they have just encountered things and experienced things that I haven't. So I actually kind of consider that a good thing when I might have a direction I want to go and they're like, hold on, we went that way with this other board and here's some of the problems we landed in. Let's try it this way. I mean, I find that valuable. Um, where it might get difficult is just because it is a committee and because there are multiple people involved, things get slower. And that's by design. I mean, that's what the IRS wants with nonprofits. They want them to be a little bit more bureaucratic, and bureaucracies just move slower. So you can't be as nimble as, say a just LLC that's running a film festival. So that is one big disadvantage to it. But in my opinion, as soon as you kind of work out all the bugs in the system and everybody kind of finds that good rhythm, it doesn't hamper you too much. And in fact, I feel like you have more hands on deck that can help when is needed.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, if you're able to say, what was the budget for your the first year of the festival, if you know it, because I guess Alan was in charge. And then can you
I
talk about the budget you have now?
I don't know what the first year of the festival was. I know Alan had mentioned mostly the festival was operating under like 15 or 20,000 a year, I think is what, and please take that with a grain of salt. I don't know for certain. The budget for the festival last year was $40,000. And so that makes us a tiny festival in comparison with some of these other events where, again, if they're nonprofits, they have to disclose their financials. They have to make them publicly available. So because I'm a nerd and I look into that stuff, I see other festivals with operating budgets of 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. I mean, if you want to go all the way up to Sundance, the last financial report I read of theirs was like a $45 million budget of the festival. So suddenly $40,000 is like nothing. That's a rounding error.
Yeah, pretty much. So do you guys with that relatively small budget, which is what we're kind of dealing with, even smaller, right?
Yeah.
For our first year festival, do you guys put a lot of that back to like cash prizes and trophies, or does that mostly go toward like bringing in industry professionals and events? Yeah, do you guys do like trophies, cash prizes? What do you kind of give back to the filmmakers at
So,
the festival?
so our trophies, if I can just say, are beautiful. I know every festival thinks they have the best trophies, but damn, our trophies are gorgeous. So we give out bronze bison is what our trophies are. So they're the statuettes of bison and they're made out of bronze. And those are our trophies, and they're nice and heavy and big, and they feel like a trophy should feel like, right? They're very durable. Um, most of our operating costs go to just actually running the event. So there's everything from the rental fees of the facilities that we use, which is always quite a lot. And then, of course, you have every single year random expenses like hard drives that we have to buy every single year, various softwares, various subscriptions to various services, everything from like email services to website services to lawyer fees to filing fees to accountants to all of that stuff that nobody really thinks about when operating it. But for the filmmakers specifically, what we try to do is we try to create an environment that is very fun for them. So we have all of the normal staples that a festival would have, like your big red carpet, which again, you have to reprint that every single year because you have different sponsors. So that gets expensive. But we also have fun things like we have a 360 booth. We have live performances every year. So we have either like dance performances or we had a fire spinner a couple of years ago. This year, we're talking about having a gunslinger performance. So it's those live performances that are a big deal. Another thing that we do, and our filmmakers love this. This is probably the most fun thing that we do. We take all of our filmmakers to a bison ranch right there in Cheyenne, and we actually let them do this tour where they get to feed the bison. So all of our filmmakers get on all these big buses. They go out to the ranch and they're given all these pellets, and they actually get to go around and feed bison. And there's all these other animals at the ranch, like obviously like horses and chickens, but you also have like turkeys, you have mules, there's peacocks there, there's ostriches there. Like there's all of these incredible things. And it's quite an experience for our filmmakers, particularly those from the coasts, to come out here and get a taste of like what Wyoming and what the Old West is like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. And I have seen the bison, the bronze bison, and I've been envious. Those are very cool trophies. So, for your event, do you guys have like event insurance, or do you have like a lawyer?
Yeah.
I figured as much. And
Yeah,
so that's something a first year festival should definitely look into, is event insurance.
So pretty much every single venue in the United States is going to require some kind of insurance. So you have to have an event insurance. Also, for first year festivals, you probably don't run into this, but if there's anybody on staff, which is like on payroll, our festival doesn't have that, to be 100% clear, but there are a lot of festivals who do. You also need like workers' comp insurance and stuff like that. So everything that a normal business would need to operate, you need to have that. We also have a lawyer. We have an accountant, just like normal businesses do. So if you're starting at the festival, unless you know a lawyer or know an accountant, or you happen to be a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, it's probably a good idea to hire those kinds of people, especially if you're getting grant money, especially if you're getting sponsorship dollars, because those people may want to know exactly what their money was spent on. And I'm terrible with numbers, so I would rather put all of that kind of stuff in the hands of a trained professional.
I hear you. I hear you. So does your lawyer, like if you guys bump into, well, I guess, how do you handle music rights? Because we get some submissions where it's just like, I don't think they have the rights to this Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
But I've been to other festivals where they'll still play those movies as long as they, like in the credits, say, like Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. As long as they listed in the credits, they're like, we can probably still play this film. How do you guys handle that? Do you guys have to make sure that they actually have the rights to those songs?
So rights and privileges is a big deal, and a festival actually can get into a lot of trouble if they're screening something, even if they have some kind of disclaimer to the filmmakers being like, hey, we don't take responsibility for it. All of the impetus is on you. There's still some like legal trickery where a festival actually can get in trouble with that. So we actually carry E&O, which is errors and omissions insurance, which kind of protects us from that sort of thing. Again, we also make the filmmakers part of the rules, part of the submitting, part of accepting your film being played at the festival. You are accepting our rules, and in the rules it says you have all the rights and privileges. But all of that said, if a film comes in and it, to your example, it has a Led Zeppelin song, right? And we're like, that filmmaker definitely didn't get the rights, and we know that could be a problem. We ask the filmmaker, can you send us the clearances for that? And I got to be honest, most of the time they don't have it, and we got to say, you got to lose it, otherwise we can't screen your film. But you would be surprised. There have been one or two times where I see a film where it's like, this film has like a budget of $1,000 and they're using some big famous song, and I'm like, no way they have the clearance. But sure enough, they do. Like, you'd actually be surprised. Sometimes people just make those connections, or they just get lucky and they ask the artist at the right time, and the artist is like, yeah, sure, whatever, for $1. Like, they don't care. So,
yeah, that's nice. I tried to, I went through, I had a low budget for my feature film, and then I went through an agency in New York, I guess, in Brooklyn, to try to get the music rights. But the artists were actually, most of them, except for one, Death in Vegas, that's you. The artists were actually really cool and generous with their music. But every time you go to, because my understanding is that you have to get at least 2 permissions, right, from the artist and then the people who publish the music, who have the publishing rights.
Label. Like whoever has the, it's so weird. Some people have like the music rights, the recording rights, the publishing rights. Like music gets really tricky sometimes.
Yeah. And then every time I went to the publishing houses, they were like, $1,000. And I'm like, what? You can't charge me $1,000? I have like a budget of like $5,000 for this movie. And they're like, $2,000. I'm like, okay, never mind. I guess I can't. I guess I can't do that. So it's been hard, but I guess I'll look for those connections that some of those other filmmakers are lucky enough to have. Next question. What are the most reliable sources of funding that you find year to year?
Anybody in the local community that you can build those personal connections with. I mean, most industries are face to face, person to person. It's building that personal connection with somebody. So for us, it's been finding those partners within the community that understand, we're an arts event. They understand who our audience is. They understand we have goals of supporting the Wyoming filmmaking community and the broader Rocky Mountain region filmmaking community. And it's just finding them, developing those relationships, and then checking in on them. It's very, frankly, it's a little informal because you get to know these people as you talk with them year after year after year. Obviously, we're always looking for other revenue sources, other sponsors, other donors. We always welcome them. We have a big fundraising thing coming up in January where we're, going all out, inviting tons of people in the community to come out, lots of business owners, lots of people who've donated to other arts, events or functions or stuff like that. So it's all about plugging yourself into that community, building those relationships long term. And frankly, when they show up to the festival, give them a good time. Let them walk the red carpet. Let them stand on the 360 booth that does the, 360 video and photos and everything. Give them the inside scoop of what films they might like. After having worked with a couple of our donors for a couple of years, I know what their taste in film is. So I'll go up to them, nudge them, and be like, hey, this film, you're going to love it. Go check that one. Just because I know what they like. So
yeah, that's cool. So how do you, in the early years, how do you approach local sponsors? Do you start with an email or do you walk in the door and kind of with your pitch deck and just be like, hey, can I speak with the manager? And then just go from there. Where do you kind of start?
So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. Yes, you can cold email, you can cold call. One way that we have found that is effective is we've joined the chamber, the Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce. And in the Chamber of Commerce, you have these commerce meetings, like where all the members get together and they have a meeting, or maybe it's a cocktail party, or maybe somebody's throwing some kind of special private event and party. And you go and you talk with them and you rub elbows with them. This is also a good place where if you go with a board of directors, this is where a board of directors can also be very helpful. So some of my board members have experience with fundraising. So they are already plugged into their specific communities and they already know, hey, this business, they're looking to sponsor sports this year. They're not looking to sponsor arts. So we're like, that's great. But we can still invite them and we can still talk with them. And we can be like, hey, I know you're not interested in sponsoring us this year. That's not a problem. But if you're into sports, man, do we have a good slate of sports films this year? Something like that. There's still angles that you can work on it where you can still build those connections, build those bridges. So yeah, a Chamber of Commerce is a great way to do it. But yeah, sometimes it is just cold calling, cold emails. I've actually surprisingly got some that way. For all the first year people out there, once you've done it for 2 or 3 years, once you're a little bit more established, go to your sponsors and ask them to make recommendations on your behalf. Ask them to make introductions on your behalf. Because after you've done it for 2 or 3 years, you're a little bit more established. People understand like your event is not just something that popped up for a year. It's here to stay. And you've kind of built that momentum. You'd be surprised how many sponsors will help you get in the door with other sponsors.
Mm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So do you rely mostly on ticket sales, sponsors, or grants? I guess, can you kind of break down the percentage of where you guys get most of your money from? Is it mostly from sponsors?
Mostly sponsors. Funny enough, not too long ago, like a month or so ago, I had somebody on Reddit yelling at me how unfair it is that we charge filmmakers and then we charge for ticket sales. And I was like, except we gave out 2,000 free tickets last year. So I'm not really making a lot of money
on ticket sales. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And submission fees too. It's like submission fees, you don't make a lot of money. Ticket sales, you don't make a lot of money. It's really the
I mean,
sponsors.
I I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, so take it with a grain of salt. But as a 501c3, we have to publish our financials. So honestly, you can go into our financials and figure out exactly what it is. So if I'm wrong here, like, please don't drag me through the coals. But I would say probably 90% of our financing comes from sponsors and donors. That's where it comes from. Grant money, very little. It barely exists in Wyoming to begin with. So what little there is, there's so many people competing for it. It's so hard to get grant money in Wyoming.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on, I'll pivot a little bit here. What are your thoughts on premiere status? Is it important for your film festival?
It's funny because just this morning from my YouTube page, I'm not kidding you, just this morning from my YouTube page, I recorded an entire video on premiere status. So this is super fresh in my mind. Yes, it is pivotal for the festivals that care about premiere status. That's such a weird way of saying it, but it is for most festivals, they don't care about premiere status. In the video that I recorded, there's actually data that's been published on it. Something like 93% of festivals don't care about premiere status. But for those that do care about premiere status, it is probably one of the most important things there is. So if you are a filmmaker going out to festivals, you absolutely need to be looking into what their premiere status is. And you need to be thinking about that before you submit. You need to consider in what order you are submitting to festivals, because one of the most common problems is a filmmaker will get into, let's say, Festival A, which is kind of a smaller festival, and they got their official acceptance, except Festival B plays later on in the year and they require a world premiere. So what do? Do you turn down Festival A in hopes that you get Festival B, which is not a guarantee? Or do you just throw out Festival B and go with bird in the hand is better than two in the bush? And a lot of filmmakers run into that problem, and they can avoid it if they just do some research and realize what order they need to submit to festivals in.
Yeah. Do you care at YO if the films are posted online already?
If it's publicly available, like online, if it's publicly distributed, it's ineligible for the festival. So if you posted it on YouTube or Vimeo, we consider that your distribution, because for many short films, that is your distribution, and therefore it's ineligible for the festival. Our only premiere requirement that we have is a Wyoming premiere. So we don't require a world premiere. We don't even require like a North American or a USA premiere. And since we are the largest festival in the state of Wyoming, by and large, most filmmakers don't run into any kind of premiere problems with us, because most filmmakers want to screen with us first and then go to other festivals in the state.
Yeah, there's the Jackson Hole Film Festival, but they do seem significantly smaller than you guys, I think, and newer than.
And so Jackson Hole International Film Festival is, I want to say they're like 3 or 4 years old. So they're relatively new. They kind of curate a lot of their programming. Like, they do accept open submissions, but they also invite much of their programming. It's why most of the features that they're screening there are like really big, high budget films, because they're inviting those. And the other thing is, the people who are running Jackson Hole are actually the people who are running the Hamptons Film Festival. So they're not even Wyomingites, they're from the East Coast, and they're running the Jackson Hole Film Festival as well. So it's more of a tie-in for them, because a lot of East Coasters go to Jackson during the winter for skiing. So it's more of a tie-in with that festival, and they're more concerned with having kind of that upper echelon, very high budget sort of film at their festival. Whereas YOIFF is a little bit more regionally focused, where we're a bit more interested in independent filmmakers from the region, and of course from the broader United States, and the word international is in the name, so we do like to have that international flavor as well.
Yeah. It sounds like they're maybe a little bougier.
Which to be clear, is not a bad thing. That's what the festival wants. That's what their audience is. That's what their goals are. So that's not a bad thing. So if you are kind of a higher level film or bougier film or a more established filmmaker, you'll want to skip YOIFF and you'll want to go to Jackson, and there's no problem with that. But if you're more of an up and coming filmmaker, you want to skip Jackson and you'll want to come to YOIFF. It's why you should always do your research before submitting to a festival, because that will inform you kind of what the festival's particular flavor and particular taste is. And it will help inform you like which festival is better for you as a filmmaker.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned the Bison Range. What are some other good networking opportunities that you offer at your festivals or festival for the filmmakers?
So we have nightly networking parties. Every single night we have a big party that we throw. All the filmmakers and sponsors and everybody is invited. That's where most filmmakers do their networking. In particular, on Friday night, there's a big concert downtown and it's free. So a lot of our filmmakers like to go to this concert and just like rock out and party all night and have a great time. There's also the Hell on Wheels rodeo. So a lot of our filmmakers come from places where rodeo is not a very big thing for them. So it's also an opportunity for a lot of our filmmakers to go experience rodeo for the very first time. The running joke is a lot of our filmmakers come back and they're like, okay, now it's not my first rodeo. You know? So those are all good networking events and opportunities. And of course, after every single film screening, we also have Q&As with the filmmakers. So we can learn about their artistic process, learn about how they developed the film, any challenges they had along the road. And that can be helpful for filmmakers sitting in the audience to get that other perspective of how other filmmakers are making their movies come together.
Yeah. So what's a good venue for one of the after parties? Do you guys just pick a bar? Or do you have like a big, huge meeting room and you just throw in some snacks and stuff? What do you guys do for those?
So it's one of the ways that we also support sponsors and support the community. So every single night, it's a different venue around town. Typically, it's either kind of a restaurant or a bar. One of my personal favorites, there's a big arcade that we go to that has a bar over in the corner. So like, if you want to get food and drinks and everything, you can, but it's also fun to just like play arcade games all night long with a bunch of filmmakers you just met. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, those are things we do. Some of our filmmakers split off and go do karaoke, which it's kind of a weird thing. It's not an official event with the festival because, you know, it's kind of hard to network and talk with people in the middle of a karaoke bar. It's very, very loud. So we don't officially put them there, but we gently nudge them and tell them it exists and they can go do that. And a lot of them decide to go do that and have fun. So that's also another thing. There's a whole big karaoke thing that they love.
Do you rent out the venues or do you just hope that they're not overly packed with kind of the public when you guys go there?
Oh, better yet, if we can partner with the venues, if we can get some kind of fiscal sponsorship or some kind of in-kind sponsorship, that's what we prefer to do. So usually that's also a big process when we're developing the festival for our like sponsors, our partners, all of that stuff. We go to venues that are interested in us bringing a big crowd. So it's good for them. They get business and it's good for us. We get some kind of support. Sometimes it's fiscal support where they financially sponsor us. Sometimes it's some kind of in-kind support where they're able to help connect us with other sponsors or perhaps advertisers or whatever it is they have within their own wheelhouse that they can help us with. So it's a way that we can give back to the community. And it's also a way that we can find those partners within the community to help us put on the event in the first place.
Are those venues still open to the public though? Or do you rent them out for just your big crowd that you're bringing?
So it depends. The smaller venues, because there are a couple of smaller venues that we go to, we'll close those off. But usually we like to keep them open to the public. Because funny enough, when you have 70 filmmakers walk through the door, the public starts asking questions, what is going on? And it's actually an advertising mechanism for us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So how do you get the public interested in your film festival? How do you get the public to attend your film festival? Like, how do you market to them?
So one of the most difficult things about our film festival is our timing in the year. And believe me, I wish there was a better time that we could have it, but there isn't. So we are in the dead of summer. And as someone who lives in the Rocky Mountain West, you understand that summertime is valuable for people. It's when they get to go camping. It's when they get to go outside. It's when it's warm. It's when the roads are good. It's when you don't have blizzards every other weekend, right? So the advantage is it's easy for filmmakers to travel. There's tons of events going on. I mentioned the concert earlier, but there's tons of stuff like that. There's square dancing. There's all sorts of cowboy culture going on in Wyoming. But the disadvantage is exactly that. There's so much to do during the summertime. We are competing against a lot of this other stuff. Versus if we did it in the dead of winter, yes, we wouldn't have any competition, but there's a reason there are no events in winter, and that's they get shut down by snowstorms all the time. So that's why you don't do it. Like if we were to hold our festival in the dead of winter, one snowstorm, we would have 0 people in attendance. So to engage the community, there's a lot of things that we do. There's a lot of angles. So there's general promotion, like we go to bars and we do movie trivia at bars as a promotion mechanism. There's a big fair at the park where we have a booth and we have fun, like, again, movie trivia games. We bring out our 360 booth. I mean, the very fact that we screen movies like right there and the whole public can see it and everything, that piques a lot of curiosity. So those ones are huge. We usually get like at least 1,000, 1,500 people just from that single event alone in our promotion. And then, of course, there's traditional promotion. There's everything from posting up flyers or making posters and putting them up in stores that allow you to post that sort of stuff, public billboards, the public library. There's engaging sponsors. So if you have sponsors who are fiscally supporting the festival, we give them a certain number of free tickets, and we ask them to include us in any of their, outreach that they have to their customer base. So, it might be, Joe's Roofing Company is a proud sponsor of the Wyoming International Film Festival, and they'll send that out to their customers in their base. So that's another mechanism to promote the festival.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, do you get, oh, sorry, if I interrupted, you can keep going.
Well, I was also going to say, also, depending on individual films, we might do specific outreach for that film. So to give you an example, we had an Israeli film last year, which was about a Holocaust survivor. And we reached out to every single synagogue, every single Hebrew center, every single like Jewish community that we could between Casper, Wyoming and Denver, Colorado. We reached out to all of them promoting that film specifically. And that audience was packed, super packed. So depending on what the film is, we might even identify a specific audience and advertise to that specific audience.
Social media. How do you guys approach your social media? Do you guys, it sounds like you have a YouTube channel, which I've been watching and it's fantastic. But what do you guys do do you use Instagram? Do you use TikTok? What do you guys do with social media?
So we post on Instagram from time to time. We're much more active around the festival. So like this time of year when we're in the middle of submissions, we frankly hardly ever post on Instagram. Same goes for Facebook. We're much more active around the festival at the time. Reddit is where we are most active. We answer questions on Reddit. We do outreach to community on Reddit. We get filmmaker feedback on Reddit, which sometimes is a mixed bag. Sometimes filmmakers are just mad at festivals in general and they want to take it out on us, which fine, whatever, totally valid. But by and large, Reddit is where we are most active because Reddit is where we find the most value connecting with filmmakers because it's so much easier to be open and honest and have that two-way channel when you can just be direct and be speaking with them directly instead of just these other mechanisms of like promotional materials. We're happy to go on the Reddit and talk about like what trends we're seeing in submissions, what changes we're making to the festival, policy differences that we have, whatever. And what's great about Reddit is there's also a lot of other festivals that are pretty active on Reddit. So we're also able to connect with them. And sometimes we're able to compare notes. Sometimes we find, hey, maybe we're not doing something as well as it could be. And this other festival has figured it out. So it's a way for us to improve so we can give a better experience to filmmakers. Because at the end of the day, The festival should be all about the filmmakers, and that is truly what we are trying to create.
That makes sense. How do you get industry guests, jurors, and notable filmmakers as like a first year festival? Or is that something maybe you shouldn't worry so much about because you don't have those connections yet? How do you think first year festivals should kind of juggle that?
I think for a first year festival, especially if you're not on the coasts, if you're not in Atlanta or New York or in Toronto or LA, I think for a first year festival, that shouldn't be the concern. I think it's all about the quality of the films and the quality of the experience for the filmmakers. When you really nail that down, then you can start building off of that, because foundationally, that is what a festival should be. It should be screening very good films and having a great experience for filmmakers, for audience, for the people in attendance. Once you get that core down, then you can start worrying about all the bells and whistles, other special events, other special guests. What will happen for a first year festival as it grows, you will start to expand your list of alumni and people who have experienced your festival. And through them and through their contacts, it's much easier to lock down those industry professionals because you already have some kind of a tie-in with them. So if your goal is to bring those sorts of people in, maybe you're trying to bring in distributors for films, or maybe you're trying to bring in panelists to share their advice and their insight with filmmakers. The easiest way to do that is just run a killer event for a couple of years, and then you start building those people in.
Yeah, I like that. So how do you avoid competing with other regional film festivals as best you can? And do you try to keep kind of a collaborative environment with other regional film festivals?
Absolutely. So there's another festival in Cheyenne. It's called Midnight West Fest. They're a genre festival. They focus on horror films. They focus on sci-fi, pulp, stuff like that. I volunteer at that festival every chance I get. So it's not a matter of competing with them. I try to do everything I can to help them. And they also come to my festival and they volunteer at my festival whenever they can. So there is this absolute collaborative effort between us. Now, we are a general festival. That means we screen a little bit of everything: documentaries, drama films, romance films, comedies, whatever. So we do screen some horror films, but that's kind of where we try and stay in our lane and allow them their space that they can exist, because that's their whole shtick. They are a horror festival, a sci-fi festival, a genre festival. That's where they really shine versus us. We have a segment of it, but it's not our main focus. So if there are any films that come in to us and it's not quite a right fit for us, we'll kick them over to Midnight West and we'll be like, hey guys, this film rocks. If you guys will accept it, we'll pay for their submission fee, not a problem. And then, of course, like I said, they come and volunteer with us. We go and volunteer with them. It is that collaborative effort, because really we want to create a good environment for the filmmaking community at large.
Yeah, fantastic. So what are the most common mistakes you see new film festivals make, if anything jumps into your head?
So balancing budget is always the toughest thing. There's a lot of ambition with new film festivals where they want to do a lot of different things. I've seen kind of newer upcoming festivals be like, we're going to have a festival. Also, we're going to have a bunch of concerts built into it. Also, we're going to have these crazy events, and the cost gets so overwhelming that they can't keep up with it, and they end up going under, unfortunately. So the biggest mistake I would say is you're chasing too many rabbits. Just focus on that one thing that makes your festival unique, whatever it is. For a lot of festivals, it's the town that they're in or the region that they're in that makes them unique. So they kind of lean into that a little more. Create that event, make it rock solid, make it good for the filmmakers, because at the end of the day, you cannot have a film festival without films. So it's all about the filmmakers, right? You create that event and then you can start flourishing from there. So my biggest advice is to first year festivals, it's much more expensive than you think it is. Like whatever you think it is, double it and then add another 50%. It is much more expensive than you think it is. and really just dial in on filmmaker experience. You do that for a couple of years, you get your feet under you, you get a solid foundation, expand from there.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that a lot. So, what strategy do you recommend to filmmakers for submitting to film festivals? Like, do your research, but yeah, which film festivals should they submit to? How many? And why not just post their film online?
I might be the only film festival director on earth that says sometimes it's better to post your film online and skip the festival circuit entirely. Film festivals are a tool. And just like not every tool is going to be right for every job, not every festival is going to be right for every single film. So it really does come back to do your research, identify which festivals are going to be most helpful for you. But the biggest thing that I tell filmmakers is figure out what is your goal. Why are you even going to festivals in the first place? Ask yourself that question. If you're looking for a distributor, great. Festivals can help with that. If you're looking to network with other filmmakers, absolutely. Festivals are probably the most valuable resource there is for networking with other filmmakers. But if you're just trying to get it seen by as many people as possible, well, if quantity is the goal, festivals are probably the worst way of going about it because you're going to spend all this money submitting to all these festivals and get in, and there's going to be 50 people in one screening, 100 people in the next screening, whatever. And you can post it on the internet and get thousands of views in a much smaller amount of time for, nothing pretty much. So really identify what your goal is before you go out to festivals. Think it through if that festival is actually going to help you with your goal. And then that's going to help you on your festival journey.
Yeah, I like that. So, what are your long-term hopes for the Wyoming International Film Festival?
One of my biggest ambitions, and we've already kind of started doing it, but I really want to dial it up to 11. One of my biggest ambitions with the festival is use it as a vehicle to finance local filmmakers. So we have already cut a couple of grants to local filmmakers. We've cut 3 so far. They're nothing super impressive or anything, but it is money that we are giving to filmmakers to go make their films. So one is a high school in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the other 2 were filmmakers based out of Casper, Wyoming. My absolute dream and ambition would be to be able to cut huge checks like $5,000 checks for short films, maybe even $20,000 checks for feature films, stuff like that, for filmmakers who want to tell stories in the state of Wyoming. That would be my dream come true. We are a long way off. There's going to be a lot of steps that we need to take to get to that goal. And we have a strategy to get there. It is definitely long term. It's not going to happen overnight. Rome's not built in a day, all of that jazz. But that would be my ambition, is to use the festival as a vehicle, not to just exhibit films, but to actually help finance films for filmmakers.
Yeah, great. What are your long-term goals for your YouTube channel?
To run out of topics. Again, I might be the only YouTuber that wants to run out of things to say on YouTube and close the channel. I get so many questions about film festivals that sometimes I found myself repeating a lot of the answers. I decided it would be a better service, instead of just answering one filmmaker at a time, instead to create a, video playlist of common questions or common topics. I told you I've discussed premieres. I still got to edit the video together, but I just did that this morning. It would be my goal to have pretty much all of the bases when it comes to film festivals, all of the questions, all of the scenarios, all of the things that you can talk about and consider. I'd like to have all of that covered in all of these videos. That way, filmmakers have a resource that is open and free and right at their fingertips, that they can go and they can search and they can get at least one person's opinions and insight. I am by no means the definitive guru of film festivals or anything like that, but if nothing else, it's at least a jumping off point to help them on their festival journey. So that's what my goal is at the end of the day.
Okay. Well, I think that's all my questions. So, Rudi Womack, thank you so much for coming on.
I really appreciate you inviting me on. Thank you very much.
No problem. And so, where should people go to learn more about the film festival and your YouTube channel?
If you're interested in the Wyoming International Film Festival, we are listed on both Hike and Film Freeway. Obviously, we also have a website, so it's wyoiff.com. That's yoiff.com. If you're interested in my YouTube channel, where I discuss film festivals and I kind of break down some of these concepts in some detail, that's called The Film Festival Guide. It's on YouTube. Please like and subscribe.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Rudi Womack, for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. You have a good one.
Take care.